During World War II, there were many individuals who took a stand to help their fellow Germans flee the chaos and tragedy that surrounded them. One such man was a pastor. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. His actions and his words ring still in the ears and from the pulpit of many a minister even to this very day. Being one such pastor myself, I have learned a great deal from the writings and the works of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. In action, Mr. Bonhoeffer proved that love is more than just a reaction. He has shown it to be a first option and not just a last chance. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's work has demonstrated how all of us should treat our fellow citizens. Dietrich proved that it was actions and not just words that speak most loudly. His ideas and his work resound endlessly through the theological halls of today. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was born February 4, 1906 in Breslau, Germany. He was the sixth child of Karl and Paula Bonhoeffer. He had a twin sister named Sabine. Bonhoeffer was a man who came from a family of great gifts and skills. His maternal grandmother was a gifted pianist who had studied under Franz Liszt. His father was a physician who was the chief of neurology and psychiatry at Berlin's major hospital. His older brother was a noted physicist, and his other brother, Klaus, was a lawyer. Before World War II actually began, there arose a battle between two churches. This battle was between the National Church and the Confessing Church. The National Church consisted of those who had given their support to Adolf Hitler and his newfound government. The Confessing Church were those who stated that there was only one leader, and for those who followed Jesus Christ, it was not Adolf Hitler. Bonhoeffer took his stand upon the side of the Confessing Church. He opened a Confessing Church seminary. He taught and trained new ministers on the ways of Christianity. He trained them to take a stand for the truth and not just go with the flow as so many other ministers had. When this seminary was closed due to a new law outlawing such, Bonhoeffer traveled from place to place, continuing his training and teaching privately. He refused to leave Germany. He felt that if he didn't stay and suffer persecution with his fellow countrymen, he wouldn't be able to enjoy the freedom that came with being a pastor. Why did he risk his life in doing such? He believed in two things. He believed that a true servant of Jesus Christ lived as a true disciple. He taught this in his book, The Cost of Discipleship. This book was an exposition on the Sermon of the Mount and Matthew chapters 9, verse 35 through chapters 10, verse 42. He also believed that the servant of Christ experienced the costly grace. Costly grace, he taught, was one of justification with works. Conversely, cheap grace was one of the preaching of forgiveness without requiring repentance, baptism without church discipline, communion without confession, absolution without personal confession. Cheap grace is grace without discipleship, grace without the cross, grace without Jesus Christ living and incarnate. In a time and country filled with hate-filled speech, chaotic actions, and worrisome thoughts, Dietrich Bonhoeffer took a stand. He stood for love. He raised the banner of truth. He faced against those who wished him death. Dietrich Bonhoeffer spoke words of wisdom. He reflected actions of love. He wrote thoughts of unity. Ironically, in all this, he demonstrated defiance. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's life had demonstrated to Christians over 60 years later what the true cost of discipleship is.